it's the ultimate merge of open source as a development model and currencies, and there's some real intricacies in the management of that.
So I just wanted to explore another payment privacy model, which is, so one thing that you see in Bitcoin is that all the transaction values are public on the blockchain. And
that creates a risk for analysis of the values in order to break the privacy and
well, I mean, so that's very much true. So, but there's another motivation, which is, apart from like taint analysis, was actually more to do with the chain of custody, which is visible, but also the transaction amounts provide a second attack on that. But there's another layer, so like more at the business layer or something, that looking at the values flowing on the network, you know, you have to be careful using Bitcoin that you don't reveal your Bitcoin net worth by making a small payment from a large denomination coin. So, you know, if you're holding a lot of coins, maybe you want to divide them up into small pieces so that you don't risk getting mugged if you pay somebody, you know, 1 Bitcoin and they can see. I saw somebody last week who had 500 Bitcoins on his phone, which I think is an insane risk personally, knowing quite a lot about host security and other factors. You know, the baseband processor on the phone is actually quite easy to hack, and once you have control of the baseband processor, hack over the air. The baseband processor is the part that implements the GSM protocol, and once you have control of the GSM, the baseband processor, you have root access to the application processor and can empty it of Bitcoins basically. So don't do that.
Yeah.
There's the concern about net worth analysis, and some people are paid their salaries in Bitcoin, so they reveal their, you know, people can go look how much they earn, so kind of violation of payment privacy. And people wouldn't be comfortable if their credit card statement was posted online in the same way, and it's basically what Bitcoin does. And also for companies, it's quite unattractive because, you know, any kind of Bitcoin ecosystem company has to be careful that their business model can't be reverse engineered by looking at their profit margins, looking at their trade volume. It's all on the blockchain, it can be explored. People can get an idea of which address is theirs just by using their service.
Right.
Even if they reuse addresses, there's some linkability.
Some want open book accounting, but this is open book accounting for everyone, whether they want it or not.
Right, so going back to some early cypherpunk ideas, Eric Hughes had proposed the idea of an encrypted open book. So it turns out that some of the encryption algorithms provide homomorphic addition. So now, it's relatively well known that dual homomorphic encryption, where it supports addition and multiplication, is a kind of open problem. There finally, in the last decade, have been a system that works but is phenomenally impractically expensive. But in the realm of single homomorphic encryption, where you can do addition only or multiplication only or some variant of that, there are actually very efficient systems to do that. And so
just a quick explanation. Homomorphic encryption, the ability to do addition, this is where you get 2 encrypted inputs, you compute the output, and you have no idea what you just computed, but the output can be valid and used by someone.
Right, exactly. So if you have, let's say, $2 plus $5 getting combined and spent to a $7 payment, if you have encrypted $2, encrypted $5, you can actually test that adds up to encrypted $7 without knowing any of the amounts involved. So you can use this principle on the blockchain. So if you have encrypted values instead of the current 64-bit plaintext values, you have encrypted values, and you can have validation with value privacy. So it's very attractive for practical commercial use of Bitcoin because companies very much don't want to expose their profit margins and so forth. Now, there's a technical problem with straightforward homomorphic encryption, otherwise it would actually be very efficient, space efficient. So the base thing is you can store that in about the size of a DSA signature or something of that order, which is very space efficient and quite practical. But there's a problem, which is that the homomorphic encryption, the addition operation, is actually modulo the order of the group, which is a very large number n. And because of that, you can cheat and you can add n to your balance by doing various things. So you have to defend against that, and that adds some complexity. But there are conservative known crypto approaches to proving that it didn't wrap around. So it's basically called zero-knowledge range proof. So I spent quite a bit of time a few months ago optimizing zero-knowledge range proofs to enable encrypted values, and I was able to get it down to about 1 kilobyte per value, because that's still quite a bit bigger than 8-byte plaintext values, but for high-value commercial transactions,
it's worth the extra cost.
Yeah, I mean, it's a negligible cost if you're talking about, $100,000 transaction or $1 million transaction or something where you need that kind of thing. So we could see a mixture of, and actually they are compatible. You can mix homomorphic values and plaintext values. the validation procedure can take unencrypted inputs and combine that and check that it adds up to an unencrypted output. Then you would be able to move money around on the network and not really be able to see what's going on. And there's an additional kind of curiosity, which is I found that I could make an extended zero-knowledge proof, which created a kind of extended version of CoinJoin. So with CoinJoin, you need to collect people to participate with you voluntarily to improve the fungibility. So there's a signature concept called a ring signature, and CoinJoin is more like a multi-party signature, where a group of people get together and they sign a message together. A ring signature is that I personally want to sign a signature, but I want to make it ambiguous who authored this message. And so I can implicate, without any cooperation or agreement, other people as potential authors of it using a ring signature. So using the zero-knowledge proofs and homomorphic encrypted value constructs together, I made something I called Ringcoin. And the way that works is that you can basically prove that of the inputs to this transaction, some of them are mine because I know the private key, and some of them are other people's. And the way that I'm able to claim other people's, that I'm able to modify other people's balances, apparent balances, is that I can prove that either I know that coin's private key, so I'm authorized to take value off it, or that the amount I'm taking off it is an encrypted version of 0. So that's of no possible damage to anybody for the network to allow me to take 0 off of hundreds of other people. And so that could potentially provide a more robust fungibility. And unfortunately, the zero-knowledge proof doubles in size from 1 kilobyte to 2 kilobytes where you do that, because the way you do zero-knowledge OR proofs as a kind of basic fundamental building block involves basically doing things twice. You have to cover both halves of it. So it basically doubles the zero-knowledge proof size. But I was quite interested to explore whether there was some way to make an even more compact ring proof where you could basically have an anonymity set from a large number of coins chosen at random or chosen specifically. So a potential limitation with CoinJoin is that people could try to influence the parties that you are joining with to reduce your anonymity set and therefore the effectiveness of the fungibility improvement. So being able to choose...
And the values are visible.
And the values are visible.
Right, which is a big taint in traffic analysis risk.
Right. So it might be within the bounds of possibility that one could get a ring signature even with Bitcoin using some kind of extended CoinJoin. I haven't thought too much about that, but it's an interesting thing to consider further. But certainly with the ability to choose who you're mixing with, so to choose anonymously yourself is much more certain that nobody is attacking your network sense to influence who you're joining with. So if your adversary is all the people you're joining with, you haven't enhanced fungibility at all, in fact. So if you can choose them at random, like with a cryptographic random number generator, you're much more confident that you've achieved some real fungibility improvement. And alternatively, you could even selectively choose the people to be plausible individuals who might otherwise have executed this transaction. So, for example, if it's an exchange transaction, you might mix it with other users of that same exchange or something like that. So you could perhaps get even more practical fungibility improvement by carefully choosing people that you mix with. So
it sounds like we're still at the very early stages. I mean, Bitcoin has proven its capability to survive as a currency and generates a lot of value for a lot of people. But there's so much more we can do within the protocol. You've mentioned 4 different approaches to improving the fungibility layer and creating anonymity and privacy within. Clearly, the state of the art is progressing just as fast in this new theoretical developments as Bitcoin is progressing itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think the important thing is to use conservative cryptography, or if you're using experimental cryptography, to have a disaster recovery plan that doesn't result in loss of funds. Maybe there's some scope within that. We do need to improve the fungibility layer if we possibly can. The CoinJoin and possibly Ringcoin. Another thing I had discussed with Greg Maxwell and others was to use a different signature algorithm. So the ECDSA algorithm is a slightly complicated version of the Schnorr algorithm. So I believe the main reason that ECDSA even came into existence was to work around the Schnorr patent, which has now expired. But the Schnorr algorithm is very much simpler and actually slightly more secure, more efficient, and very much more flexible. So you can do blind signatures with it. You can do signatures from a trusted hardware device like a Trezor while blocking any subliminal channel. So a problem with a hardware device is you may not trust the hardware manufacturer, and he has the easy possibility with a DSA signature to hide information in the key value and therefore leak the private key and steal your funds or trace you or what have you. So using a Schnorr signature...
So like a deliberate example of what we saw with the Android bug where the key value wasn't sufficiently random, but in this case you're deliberately introducing a compromised key.
Right. Well, actually, I mean, there's two things. So what you mentioned about the Android device is a misuse or not following advice. Basically, people should be using deterministic DSA, which derives the key value deterministically from the message. And the ECDSA private key is a well-known protocol, and all Bitcoin clients should be using it as soon as possible. And that obviates the ongoing dependence on a random number generator. You only need random number generation during the initial setup of your wallet to create the ECDSA private key. So people should be doing that, and that would have avoided the Android problem. And if you can take random numbers generators during the initial stage only, you can have manual user entropy input. They can type on the keyboard, move the mouse, or what have you, speak into the microphone or Android phone. So that's the way to tackle that problem. Now, in terms of subliminal channel, it's exactly as you said, that a malicious hardware vendor could extract a private key and leak it. He has a subliminal channel over the message that the user is sending. And so any kind of offline client, and the only two ones we have that I'm aware of right now are Armory offline client and the Trezor hardware wallet. So using the elliptic curve Schnorr algorithm, there's a protocol which is, I'm not sure if it's actually due to Brands, it may actually be earlier, but it was certainly used to good effect by Stefan Brands in his protocols. So his electronic hash protocols have what he calls a wallet and observer protocol, where you can have a subliminal channel-free way to get a signature from an embedded device. And so basically the way it works is you blind the message that you want the device to sign, and you provide a zero-knowledge proof that the message inside the blinded message is this clear text message. The device shows the clear text message, gets the user approval, signs it, sends it back to the host computer, and the host computer can then unblind it, securing the knowledge that unless this hostile device has like a hidden Wi-Fi card in it or something, there's no way, it has no communication path to the network. So that's a more secure way of doing things. And also, Schnorr signatures have other advantages in that they are easy to make compact multi-signatures. So with Bitcoin multi-sigs, you have a separate signature for each signer, which takes up space on the blockchain. So if you have 2 or 3 signers, you have to have slots for those 2 signatures to go. With a Schnorr signature, you can have a direct multi-party signature by 2 parties, and the final signature is of size of 1 signature, and the public key of the signature is the addition of the 2 signers' public keys. And it also supports simply K of N threshold signatures, so you can have 2 of 3 and so on in the same model, where the final signature is compact. I think potentially even with no prior setup, so the users don't have to be part of a cooperative. You and I, if we'd never met before, we could get together and sign a 2 of 2 signature involving our pre-existing public keys with value on them. So that's the Schnorr signature, and some of these features can have potential to save space on the blockchain, which is a valuable resource, and potentially to improve the fungibility mechanisms. So, for example, Greg Maxwell had mentioned that he had some thoughts about using this kind of signature to make CoinJoin more effective, because there is some visibility of what's going on based on who's signing. So I think I didn't fully understand where he thought that could go, but maybe he can figure something out. So there's certainly a lot more flexibility and a lot more possibilities from it. It's more efficient, more secure, and Dan Bernstein has proposed Schnorr signatures in a new standard called EDDSA, and I think it's useful and possible that the Bitcoin network could add that protocol even incrementally, and actually they had been considering it for independent reasons. It's more efficient as well.
So this essentially means not necessarily replacing ECDSA, but allowing people the possibility of using multiple different signature algorithms for the protection of their outputs.
The EC Schnorr algorithm is more efficient computationally and can be much more efficient space-wise in terms of blockchain bandwidth usage if multi-signatures start to become widely used. And I think for many of the more interesting longer-term features involving smart contracts and so on, multi-signatures are more commonly used, so that could provide some value there.
All right, my guest has been Adam Back, applied cryptographer and very influential both in the early history of digital cash, but now increasingly helping us make Bitcoin better and applying his cryptographic skills to improving the core fundamentals, including the fungibility layers we discussed. Adam, thank you very much for joining our show.
You're very welcome.
EasyDNS is the Swiss Army knife for your domain names, helping meet their customers' individual needs since 1998. EasyDNS has been an outspoken critic of SOPA and CISPA. EasyDNS was an early supporter of Bitcoin, and now they are proud to sponsor this show. Do business with a company that shares your values. Get a 13% discount when you pay with Bitcoin. Go to bitcoin.easydns.com and be sure to use discount code LTB.